Greetings and welcome to the Superb Diamond Range Show. This is episode 45, an interview with Perry Wilson, the founder of Stupid is the Norm, as part of the financial series. And I'm your host, Superb, broadcasting from Edinburgh. So just to do a quick, brief financial disclaimer, we are not financial advisors. The content on this podcast and YouTube videos are for educational purposes only and merely cite our own personal opinions. In order to make the best financial decision that suits your own needs, you must conduct your own research and seek the advice of a licensed financial advisor if necessary. Know that all investments involve some form of risk, and there is no guarantee that you will be successful in making, saving, or investing money, nor is there any guarantee that you won't experience any loss when investing. Always remember to make smart decisions and do your own research. About today's guests. So we've got Perry Wilson from Stupid is the Norm, who I've actually come across through the YouTube videos, but also a really, really good PDF book that he has available on his website for free. So about Stupid is the Norm. So we are Perry and Will. Stupid is the Norm is the brainchild of Perry, who has made every financial mistake there is to make. Combine that experience with the geeky prowess of Will. Stupid is the Norm was brought to life across multiple platforms. Together we have created a program that has brought Perry from bankruptcy to now being able to invest $1,200 plus per month. We are normal guys who are doing something extraordinary and believe that anyone can become wealthy regardless of age, ability or education, which is why we want to show you how. Obviously it's a lovely weekend, bank holiday weekend, great weather. So welcome to the show, Perry.
Thank you very much, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Cheers.
Good. Can I just say before we start, that financial disclaimer you gave right at the beginning, is it any wonder that financial services people find it difficult to sell investments or insurance or anything when that's the first thing you say to a client?
Absolutely,
the fact that your investments can fall as well as plummet.
Exactly.
They never give the upside, but that's what you got to do. That's the law. So there we are. Let's be straight about this.
Yeah, no, it doesn't give you much confidence. It's so confusing, like a lot of finance.
So the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? Who am I? Briefly, you give a pretty succinct little background there, but I'm now 59 years old. I'm a cab driver. That's how I make my main income. And I started Stupid is the Norm because I wanted to demonstrate, because demonstrating is more efficient than explaining, to demonstrate that anyone, provided they're able to work, and you have to be able to work, that is important, can become wealthy. And I do mean that, anyone at any age. I started this project when I was 57. I got into it at 57. And I set myself some specific goals, and those goals were that I could accumulate 300,000 in 10 years. Now, why 300,000? It's important just to have a goal, but a number, but it's important that number represents something, because then you've got an emotional attachment to it. And I said I wanted £300,000 because I spent 12 years in the Navy. I love the sea. And what I want to do in my retirement is I want to buy a yacht. I've budgeted 80 to 100,000 to buy a 50-foot Beneteau yacht and have that moored in Gibraltar Harbour. And the other 200,000 is to fill it full of rum and victuals, and me and the wife are going to sail the Mediterranean like pirates. So that's my target. Why did I start at this age? Why did I start so late? Or why did I start at all? It was pretty much a life-changing event happened when I was 55. If you're anything like me, Stephen, well, you sound a lot younger than I am, but I've done a lot of jobs since leaving the forces. And sometimes you're at a business or a company not very long, but long enough to be in the pension scheme. And I got to 55, and you're then at that age, you're eligible to take any personal pension you have. And unbeknownst to me, I had a small couple of pensions lying with a couple of companies who had also forgotten. And because I hadn't moved house, they wrote to me at the same address where I worked for the company, and they said, hey, you're 55 now, you can have these pensions if you want. And the sum total between the two pensions was about £3,500. I'd been with them a year, 18 months, I guess. So there wasn't much in there. But it was £3,500. Now, let me put that into perspective. I was 55 at the time, as I said. I was working behind a bar for minimum wage. I had £10,000 of the credit card debt, and I had no savings at 55 years old. Wow. So that £3,500 represented quite a lot of money for me. And you know what? I can't remember what I did with that 3,500. I probably spent it. I probably wasted it because that's what I've done all my life. All my life up to that stage, I've been waiting for the universe to recognize my genius and to provide me with the winning lottery ticket or the knockout business idea or someone to value my worth and give me £100,000 a year. At 55, that hadn't happened. So at 57, I thought, I'm going to retire at 67. I've got 10 years to do. I really need to pull my finger out here. And the plan I'd been following for the last 55 years wasn't working, so I needed a new plan. And so the stimulation was desperation, if you wish. The plan I'd been following for 55 years hadn't worked, and I needed a radical, very, very different plan. And I started Stupid as the Norm because I wanted to not only demonstrate that anybody can become wealthy, regardless of the age, providing they can work, but it was also a discipline for me that I thought if I'm putting this out to the world and I'm charting my progress and I'm giving them the benefit of my mistakes, then if the world's watching me, I will stay on track. And fortunately, that's worked so far. So that's how I come to where I am today.
It's a good motivator, isn't it? And it also just shows that, a lot of people, think that, it's too late or, I'll never be able to do it. But you're proving that even, say in the 50s or mid 50s, that you can still turn things around. So you never sort of give up kind of thing.
Absolutely. And it's, now that was important because I knew that if I can sit and give advice to someone, but they'll say, okay, how much money you got in the bank? And I say, well, actually, I've got none and I'm on minimum wage and £10,000 of credit card debt. Well, how can you possibly lecture me about how to sort my finances out if you're not doing the same yourself? And the reality was I knew how to become rich. I used to be a financial advisor. I used to be a pension advisor. I used to be a wealth manager. And by the way, financial services guys are often the worst at looking after their own finance. And so whilst I was dispensing the advice, I wasn't taking it myself. So it's the reason where did I get Stupid as the Norm from is because somebody came to me one time for some financial advice and he told me what he'd been doing. And I said to him, you know why you're doing that? And he says, no. I said, that's because you're stupid. And he looked affronted. And I said, well, but that's okay because when it comes to financial knowledge, most people are stupid. Stupid is not exceptional. In fact, stupid is the norm when it comes to financial reckonings. And that's where the name comes from.
That's very good.
So that's how it all started.
I can tell by your content that you're trying to inspire the average man, woman to work hard and to save and invest. I note from your videos that you work really hard and obviously a lot of hours, like you mentioned. Sacrifice, do you find it important to achieve your goals?
I think sacrifice is essential. Everything comes at a price, Stephen. The thing is that most people, including myself up to 2 years ago, weren't prepared to pay the price because it's a pretty hefty price to pay. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So you mentioned how long I work. So there I was in a bar. It took me a couple of years after my 55th birthday to do something about it, by the way, to motivate myself. So I started when I was 57. I was working a bar. I used to work from 5:30 at night till midnight, 5 nights a week. But I had nothing to do during the daytime, so I thought I need to generate some extra cash. So I'm sitting around the daytime. I may as well turn that daytime work into more income generation. And so the way I thought about doing my solution was that I would become a cab driver in the daytime and then I'd work the bar at the nighttime. So for about 3 months, I was working at 7 o'clock in the morning till about 4:30 in the afternoon. I would go home, get changed. Fortunately, the pub was just across the road from where my house is, so there was no commuting time, so I would go from one place to the other quickly. So I'd finish at 4:30 at taxi and I'd be in the pub by 5:30 and I'd work at midnight. And I did that for about 3 months, about 75 hours. And then I found out that cabbing made more than bar work did. So then I just switched the whole 75 hours across to cabbing, and that's what I do now. I work 75 hours a week. I work 7 days a week. It's Saturday afternoon. You and I having this conversation. I was at work at 6 o'clock this morning. I worked at 10 o'clock. And then went to visit my mother. Tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'll be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning again, and work probably till 2 in the afternoon.
Wow.
But I work 7 days a week. So that's the sacrifice. Now, guess what happened to my income when I worked twice as many hours as I was doing? It doubled, because that's just what happens. If you generate income hourly, the more hours you work, the more money you get paid. So now, as a result, I'm able to generate, if you wish, the equivalent of 2 full-time job wages. I can live off one, to give my wife to pay all the bills, and the other one I can invest. I've got 2 days planned off a year, only 2. Sometimes I take more off if the bus needs fixing or whatever, but my 2 planned days off per year are Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and I'm going to do this for 10 years. And I've been doing it for 2 now. So that's the price to pay.
That's amazing.
So I'm trading off my time now for a fantastic future. Let me give you another example. If you're like me, you're lazy, you don't like washing your car, I drive a minibus. And so I'll go to one of these hand wash stations where for £7 or so, they'll wash your car for you.
Yeah.
These places are often populated by immigrants. And I get to talk to them, I always chat with the guys. And I got to know one of them pretty well. And I asked him, I says, do they pay you very well here? And he says, they pay us £20 a day, plus some of the tips. So £20 a day, the guys start about 9 o'clock in the morning. They can work till 9 o'clock at night during the summertime when it's light. And it's pretty much a 7-day-a-week job. Well, £20 a day is not a lot. He says, yes, but they pay for our digs and they put our food in there as well. They gave us work clothes. Now, his digs, by the way, is sharing a room living on a mattress with 2 other guys. Wow. So it's nothing plush. Yeah. But his numbers, and I said, why are you doing this? And the guy was in his early 20s or so. And he says, well, £20 a day, 365 days a year. Obviously, they don't work Christmas, but it works out with the tips, about £25 a day with tips, that he's making £9,000 a year. And it's tax-free because he's under the tax threshold. So he's saving that. He's going to do that for 10 years. So he's going to have £90,000. And then he's going to go back home. Now, forget where he said he lived. It was somewhere in Eastern Europe. I want to say Lithuania. I could be wrong. Okay. But where he lives, the cost of living is half what it is here. So he's going to go home with £90,000 worth of sterling, but it has £180,000 worth of buying power where he lives.
It's amazing.
He'll be in his early 30s then. So hands up, everybody who's listened to this podcast who had over £180,000 in the bank at early 30s. Certainly wasn't me.
That's incredible.
Certainly wasn't me. So, but what he's doing, he's making that sacrifice for the present for that reward in the future. And I guess the message is there is if you want an extraordinary outcome, you need some extraordinary action to achieve it.
That is brilliant. I really like the common sense, fun way you approach getting the message across in your YouTube videos. Do you think this is a good way to spread the message of financial freedom?
It's my way of doing it. I don't know whether it's good. I'll let others be the judge of that. But, personal finance is not considered an exciting subject. I don't know why. The idea of becoming wealthy is bloody exciting to me. But I guess it goes back to childhood, and a lot of financial advice is telling people they're wrong. And if you think when you're a child, you don't like your parents to tell you off. You like your parents to tell you how good you are and how special you are. So part of financial services is telling people they're wrong, and they don't like that. So I thought if I can weave a story in amongst the advice, or rather like a parable, if you wish, into the message, it becomes easier to swallow the medicine that I'm trying to dispense, I hope. So that's my reason of doing it the way I do.
For me personally, I came across a book that a friend recommended called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that kind of like got me thinking about my finances before I never really considered it. For yourself, was there a particular book, like a situation, movie, video, or friend that got you thinking more seriously about your finances?
I've probably read every financial book, self-help financial book in the world. It feels that way, at least. I'm always reading. And I'm looking for other people to publish new stuff so I can read it and continue to learn. I think the one you mentioned, by the way, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I did a video, a vlog on 4 best-selling financial books not to buy. And that was on the list, but I can tell you more about that and what my reasons for that in a second.
Sure.
The book that did affect me it's a very old book. It was written in 1925, thereabouts. And I forget the author, but you can find it on Amazon, and I recommend everybody buy it. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
I've read that. It's a great book.
Great book.
Yeah, it's really good.
I wrote a book for 70 years later, 100 years later, it's about 70, 80 years later, called The Only Guaranteed Way to Become Wealthy in the World, and it's on our website now. It's free downloadable ebook. And if you wish, that's an updated version from that modern, that old-fashioned classic. And so I would recommend everybody bought that and give it to your children. But for the 4 books I recommend not to buy, one of them was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And my reasons for that, if I may, I'm expanding the question a little bit, if that's okay.
No, of course.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't like Robert Kiyosaki, who's the author of the book. He the Rich Dad, for those of you who haven't read it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is based on a premise that Robert Kiyosaki told everyone that growing up he had a poor dad and a rich dad. His genetic father, the father that was raising him, was a college lecturer. He paid into his pension for 25, 30 years, and he retired at 55, I think it was, or thereabouts. His rich dad wasn't his dad, it was his friend's dad, and his friend's dad owned a business, a shop of some description. And he said in the book where it was and what he did and the address and whatever. And he spent years and years and years going around telling people that his poor dad taught him nothing, but this rich dad, he knew everything. And the advice he received from that rich dad was put in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, some journalists thought, wouldn't it be a whiz idea if we go and track down this rich dad and we'll interview him? And was he aware of the effect that he had on young Kiyosaki? So they searched for this business. The type of business was the name of the guy, the address, and it didn't exist. Just wasn't there. So, and they confronted Kiyosaki. He said, "Oh yeah, I made it all. It was a joke or a lie, which is what it was." Which in itself, so what, you might say, so what? But why go around years and years and years telling people that this is the truth when it's a lie? And if the first thing you say is a lie, why should I believe anything else you say?
Yeah,
why didn't you just say from the beginning, okay, I've made up this story, it's an allegorical tale, and I've used these characters to explain my financial ethics and strategies and what have you. But he didn't do that. He went on and lied to everybody until he was caught.
Yeah.
And then he said some things that just, to me, weren't true. He said that your home, your house, the one you live in, is not an asset, which everybody thinks it is. It is a liability. And to explain that, he said, well, if you lose your job, you've now got a mortgage to pay, and it becomes the biggest cost you have in your range of bills, if you wish, and therefore it's an albatross around your neck. And that's not true either, because if you have a balance sheet of assets and liabilities, the house will sit in the assets column because it has a value. It is the mortgage that's the liability that sits in the liability column.
That's right.
And if you don't like mortgage, well, take a leaf out of Dave Ramsey's book and just pay down the mortgage as fast as you can, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And the other thing I don't like about Robert Kiyosaki is the fact that he called his dad, the guy who brought him up and clothed him and put him through school, he then labeled him as the poor dad across the world. And I think, thanks a lot, son, for all I've done to you. That's the payback. So that's why I don't like Robert Kiyosaki. Well, all this is personal opinion, as you said.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Then the next book is another great best. When I say great, it's in terms of numbers. I think it is the best-selling, biggest grossing sale of any financial book. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, Napoleon Hill was a con man. I can say that would be understood because that's what he was around the turn of the last century. He was also a great writer, great copywriter, worked for some sales companies. And the premise of this book is, he says he had a meeting with a guy called Andrew Carnegie, who was then one of the richest guys in the world. He was a big steel magnate. And he said he was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to go, and he was given introductions to all his richest friends to go and interview them and find out the common trait that they all had that makes them rich. And so he went away and did this series of interviews. I don't believe he did it for a minute. There's no evidence he ever met Andrew Carnegie. In fact, he didn't mention any meeting with Andrew Carnegie until after Andrew Carnegie died, which was strange in itself. Yeah. So I don't think he interviewed any of these guys. He probably did a bit of research on them, and that's the book. Now, the premise of the book is, he says the thread that they all have, the same thing that ran through all the stories, was a belief in the goal. Now, that has to be true. I think if you're going to start any enterprise, anything at all, you have to believe in the positive outcome of the goal. But it's not the whole thing, and it's not even the biggest thing. Throughout the whole book, he never ever mentions any of the hard work that all these successful people did. All the years it took them, he says it was just down to the positive thinking. That's where the positive thinking genre came from. He's the granddaddy of them all. But he doesn't mention the hard work, which I think is disingenuous, because it tries to fool people into thinking all it's required is to be positive, and it's not. The next one's a very popular one. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you've read that one. I do recommend it.
It always gets recommended, but I've never read
absolutely. That. Yeah. It's 12 pounds a blinking book, by the way. So let me condense it down into a sentence. It sounds good, because who wouldn't like to work 4 hours a week? But here's the premise of the book. You start a business, you build it up over 10 years, you work your face off until such time that you can afford other people to do your job, and then you only have to work 4 hours a week. There you are, saved you £12. That's all it is.
Okay.
Now, the next and the last one, I could go on, but the last one is another book, which is, there's videos on it and everything. It's called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. Now, this is a new age version of Think and Grow Rich. And the hero in The Secret is something called the law of attraction. It's not a law, by the way. It's a modern day philosophy, and there's no proof it exists anywhere in the world. Oh, there's lots of stories in there about people who think, oh, I meditate on this, and then coincidentally it all happened. But they always miss again all the work and the steps you had to do to achieve the goal, and there's a lot of hard work in there.
Faith without action, isn't it, sort of thing?
Absolutely. So that's The Secret. Don't buy it, Harry. It's and you know what it is? All these books, a lot of these books are made by people who made their money selling books. That's what they do. They're good at writing stuff, and that's the work they put in. They haven't built a business up other than they educate people to become wealthy, and that's how they become wealthy. Whereas our website, everything's free. All the books, all the downloads, all the spreadsheets, everything's free. We don't want to charge anybody for anything. But you know, all these books are rather like diet books. They're all they're all based on the predicacy of people, the laziness of people, because to become wealthy, you have to work very hard. But all these self-help books are designed to say, no, you don't have to work hard. The secret is don't work hard, work smart, work clever. But the reality is, and I know lots of millionaires, they all worked hard. And I think I only know 2 that did it before they were 50. It takes time. It's hard work. But it's like diet books. You know, if you look at all these, there's a new diet comes out, a new fad diet comes out every year. And they're all trying to find that silver bullet, which in the case of diet books is so that they can look for that diet that will allow a person to sit on their couch all day with a can of Pringles and a litre bottle of full-fat Coke and still lose weight. They're all trying to avoid the obvious, which is the reason you're overweight is because you're taking in too many calories and you're not doing enough exercise. And that's the top and bottom of it. Absolutely. If you're not wealthy, it's because you're spending all your money. That's it. You need to work harder if you haven't got enough money and generate more income. It's a tough sell, but that's the reality. You have to make a sacrifice.
I know from your excellent free PDF book, The Only Guaranteed Way to Become Wealthy in the World, which is really good, highly recommend, that you're a believer in investing, at least at the time it was written. I don't know how you feel now, investing in the FTSE 100. Do you mainly focus on UK investing, or do you invest globally?
I wrote that book that you mentioned there for my teenage daughters. They're in their 20s and 30s now. But I wrote that, so it had to be very simple. I wanted a teenager to be able to read this book and to understand it and to put it in action. So at the time, I concentrated on the FTSE because it's our marketplace, Financial Times Stock Exchange. I still invest on not in the FTSE 100, but in a FTSE quoted ETF, which has exposure to global markets. They invest in 40 different companies in emerging and already established markets. So by investing in something on the FTSE, you still get exposure to the worldwide growth.
Definitely.
So yes, I still invest. I still invest regularly, and I hopefully get a chance to tell you about how I do that. If you've got some further questions.
Yeah, sure. So, what is your investing strategy? Or
right.
Yeah.
Okay, straight to the point. The investment strategy is to get the best return on my money. You've got to have the money work as hard as you do. If you just put it in the bank, then it's not going to work. Anybody can become wealthy. All you need to save is £1. If you save just £1 a month, you'll eventually become wealthy. But you eventually become a millionaire. But it would take you £1 million pounds, one a month for a million months is 83,000 years, 83,333 recurring, I think. So that's obviously an impractical time scale. So that what you need to do is get the best return on the highest return on your money. So I invest in my global tracker. Prior to the COVID, it was growing at 18%, which was lovely. It was going at 12%. It fell by 18%. I lost all that growth and went down by 18%. And it's now up by 6%. So all that massive loss that did the damage to the marketplace, I've got back. I've only grown by 6%, but that's still going. I'm not going to move that. I'm going to leave that where it is, because to sell at the bottom of the market, you've definitely lost money. So absolutely. I'm going to continue investing in that regularly on a monthly basis, and hopefully we'll get some return from as the market recovers. I also spent £1,000 on a sweet vending round. How does that work? Well, I bought 10 machines, and you'll know them. They've got little cartons in them. They have like jelly tots and Rolos in them, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I've got those in 10 garages and shops. Cost me £1,000, £200 worth of stock every 3 months or so. And they kick out about 10% a month, 10% a month on my money. So I make about £100 a month on them.
Wow.
I haven't spent £1,000. So I've had my money back on them. The problem with that, because that's a good return, you're making 10% a month. Why not just do that, Perry?
Yeah.
Nick us to the tax, you just go and put some sweet machines out. Well, the problem is it takes time. I've still got to dedicate 3 or 4 hours a month to go around and empty the machines. And really what I want to do, I want my money to work without me having to put some physical effort into it.
Yeah.
So as I said, I'm going to continue investing on the stock exchange, and hopefully we'll get some growth from that. I'm also going to buy a buy-to-let in June. That's what I mean. So it's next month. I believe the interest rates will continue at record lows for at least 5 years, probably 10 years. And for the amount of money I'm going to put in as a deposit, I will get a 20% return on that. In terms of rent, it'll kick out. I buy. People tell me there's a problem with the housing market. Yes, there is a problem, and it's in London. Perhaps in Edinburgh too, because being a capital city, any capital city is expensive. There are places in the northeast you can buy a nice 2-bedroom terraced house for £51,000.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it will kick out £500 a month. Pay the mortgage off. You're making £350 a month. And of course, once I've done that, that means the money I'm investing for the taxi company is now being enhanced by £350, which means I'm making more money every month, and that will allow me to buy another buy-to-let property on my 60th birthday, which is in July next year. So brilliant. I'm always looking to get the best return on the money, and that's important. As I said, you can save your money, but you really need to get it working as hard as you do, because that's how you become wealthy fast.
Definitely. I will come back to you on the property investing side later on, but at the moment, the way you're sort of investing in the markets, do you have a preference over ISAs or pensions, or do you like a mix of both?
I think it's a question of where you are now and where you want to be. I started this journey when I was 57, so really I'm too late for a pension. I had those kind of pensions I mentioned earlier. Before that, I should have put more money in them, but I didn't. It's one of the mistakes in a long list of mistakes I made. So pensions are no good for me. It doesn't have enough time to work its magic.
Sure.
But pensions are wonderful. Imagine when you put your money in a pension, and I'm not a pension advisor, please. So talk to a professional. I used to be, but I'm not qualified anymore. So when you put your money in a pension, the government refund your income tax paid at the lowest rate. So it's 20%. So you get a 20% interest on day one. I mean, there's not an investment in the world would do that. It's a phenomenal growth rate. So on day one, you start with 20%. When you reach pensionable age, you can take out 25% tax free, and you used to convert the rest to what they call an annuity, which is an insurance bond that pays you out a monthly sum, and that's your pension. But now they've got better. They've been relaxed a little, the rules, and now you can do drawdown options. I won't go into detail. As I say, I'm not qualified. You can speak to a professional about it. You pay tax on any income you get from your pension that's above your tax threshold. And the rules keep changing all the time. So again, please talk to a professional. They will, however, charge you. Last time I looked at a pension was a couple of years ago, and he was going to charge me £500 for the advice, and he was doing it as a favour because I'm a friend. So I think the normal fee is £1,000. But again, go and source your own professional. Now, the downside of pensions, just especially where I'm concerned, is you can't access them until whatever the pensionable age right now, which I think is 55. You can access your personal pension. Now, that'll change as the government changes rules on pensions and do regularly. However, with an ISA, if you want to retire early, you can access your money at any time you like. It's just a savings fund, which mine, I mentioned I have a global index tracker. It's wrapped in an ISA. So any monies that come from that, I take them out tax-free. That's because you didn't get tax-free, you didn't get the 20% enhancement when you put it in, like a pension. So the government allows you to get it tax-free when you're taking it out. So for me, personally, the stocks and shares ISA is the best option if you plan to retire early. And I have a second ebook. I've just published another ebook called Retire at 30. You would need an ISA to do that, because if you wanted a pension, you couldn't access it until 55. So it's where you were starting from and where you want to end up. That takes which is best for you.
What some people talk about as well is creating like a bridge to your pension as well, so you could sort of fill up the ISA to a certain stage, and then obviously still do the pension, but that hopefully gets you across to the pension at some point. So that's another way to kind of think about it, because a lot of young people, particularly, don't really have much interest in pension, and I think because they're in their maybe 20s, they think it's so far away that why should I even bother? And I need the money now, kind of thing. And they don't realise the
absolutely. Yeah, I think when it comes to investing, time is both your friend and your enemy.
Yeah.
When you're young, it's your friend because you've got lots of time in the scheme and you can get loads of return on investment. But on the downside of that, your retirement is like so far over the horizon you can't see it. And so we're human beings and we believe we're going to live forever. Oh, we all kind of believe that there's sometime way in the future we're going to die, but it's kind of amorphous. We don't really believe it. You ask anyone, do you believe you're going to die? Oh, yeah. Do you believe you're going to die tomorrow? Well, no, not tomorrow. Well, you could say that all the time. On your deathbed, you're saying, do you think you're going to die tomorrow? No, I don't think I'm going to die tomorrow. I'm going to live forever. We actually believe it's one of our coping mechanisms with death is we believe we're going to live forever. And that puts people off investing. And again, the reason I wrote the first book was to tell my children, start investing now. Start investing now.
I was going to ask, so a lot of people will rely on, obviously, stocks and shares, ISAs or workplace pensions. Yeah. But what's your thoughts about state pension?
Oh, state pension. It attracts a lot of opinion, negative and positive, state pension. First of all, it's a great parachute to protect someone who doesn't have anything. But I think for somebody, when I retire, my retirement age, state pension, 67 now, and I think I'm due £160 a week. £160 a week wouldn't keep me in drink. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but you know what I mean. It's not a lot of money. Yeah. It's not a lot of money. And whenever I've calculated what I need and require and what income I'm going to generate and require in retirement, I've never included the state pension because there will come a time where it will either disappear because we're not willing to fund it. We're not willing to pay extra tax to fund it, which is what it actually needs. Or the government will say, I don't think you need it. Why should Richard Branson get his pension? I don't know why we always pick on Richard Branson, but we also need to pick on him. Or Simon Cowell gets in the neck as well. Why should Simon Cowell get free NHS? Because that's the rules, that's the law. So, but I think there will come a time when the government says, if we're not going to raise taxes to fund it properly, then we'll really have to reduce the amount of people who are taking money out, and that will go to those who need it most. So they'll be means tested. It will become a benefit, and so I don't think it will be there for me much longer. So I've never calculated it at all.
I think for a lot of young people as well, like we kind of don't include it because we just think that it's even further away for us, and maybe might never get to it, or it could. I
don't think you'll get it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're making enough money, I don't think you'll get it. You'll get it.
Yeah. So do you think people who earned low or minimum wage with high expenses or debt always saving until they get like delaying saving until they get like a future pay rise, or say winning the lottery, or do you think they should start now, even if it's a small amount each month to begin with?
I think I got a lot of stick for this. It's because they say, well, it's okay for you. You've got enough money. It's okay. But I'm struggling and what have you. But never has anything proved the need for a nest egg or a reserve fund more than the coronavirus has. If the government hadn't stepped in with a furlough fund, a lot of people would have no money at all. And I forget what the figures are, but they are incredibly high about the percentage of people who have less than £1,000 reserve fund in the bank for emergencies. It's incredibly high. It's in the 90%, which is staggering. But again, I understand that having little money is tough. When I started my journey to what I call FI, financial independence, as I said earlier, I was on minimum wage, 10 grand in debt, and I had no savings. So I started from the same position as a lot of people are. And what I did recognize was I needed to generate more income. And that's the way I always look at it. Now, there's two ways of doing this. You can either cut bills, which is what I call the passive way, or you go on the offensive, which I prefer, which is to generate more income. Reducing bills is a great way of doing it. It's the fastest way of doing it because not spending money not spending £10 is the same as earning an extra £10. You can get immediate results, but there's a finite amount of cutting you can do. You can't knock your bills down to zero because you've still got to pay rent or a mortgage. You've still got to pay for gas, electricity. You can't get it down to zero. However, on the income side, there is no limit to how much you can generate. So I've always gone for the offensive side and to generate more income. Now, understand we're not all rocket scientists. We don't have degrees. I don't have a degree. I joined the forces when I was 16, so I didn't even go to secondary school. It doesn't matter how you do it, you have to generate more income. Now, this could be just doing overtime, if it's available, working weekends, flog stuff on eBay, get paid to answer surveys online, drive for Uber, deliver pizza, whatever it is. If you can convert 4 hours of watching TV, Love Island, to 4 hours earning money, you can potentially increase your income by 50%. Now, as I said earlier, I spent 57 years of waiting for the universe to recognize my genius and deliver me that lottery ticket. It never happened. You have to do it yourself. Do not rely on the government. Do not rely on family. You have to do it yourself. You're in charge. You can create your own future, and that's what I decided to do. So it's important, wherever you are in your financial journey, as much as I hate the word journey, you have to generate more income and just find a way for you to do it. There are lots of places online that concentrate on how to, work from home and make money. Find them. There are lots of bloggers who specialize in that. Just find the way that suits you the best, suits your circumstances. But for goodness sake, generate more income.
For a lot of people, one of the barriers to achieving financial independence for a lot of people is obviously, as you said, not maybe having any savings in their account, or it could be things like debt. Obviously a lot of people think it's okay to borrow for consumer debt, things like cars or credit cards, and they sort of have no understanding of the consequence of that. What's your feelings on consumer debt, I guess?
I am a very personal story. I haven't always been a cab driver. I've had some quite stellar jobs in which I made a lot of money and I spent it all. Nothing unusual there, I guess, stupid is the norm. So, there was one time, I was explaining, I had a 5 Series BMW. I think at the time it was costing me £300 a month in finance, 200 in fuel. The insurance was 100. So the bills came about £600 a month so that I could look wealthy. Because at the time I valued looking wealthy over actually being wealthy, and I think that's what a lot of people do. Now, it's not just the cost of the £600 has cost me to run that. That's money that I could have invested, and if I had invested that over the time that I had the car and I kept on funding at that level till I retired, I calculated once that I would have had over £336,000 that I worked it out one time. That if I had not spent that £600 and I had invested £600 a month up until I retired, that's what I would have had. So that car didn't cost me the £500 or £600 a month. It cost me £336,000 because that's what I lost by wanting to look rich rather than actually be rich. Now, if I'd have walked in that car showroom and they on the windscreen had instead of £18,000 had £336,000, I'd have walked out. But that was the true value of that car to me. That's how much it cost me. So let's be clear. Debt of any kind is bad debt. Debt steals money from your pocket and it robs you, as it did me, of the opportunity to invest. I'm not, however, a debt repayment zealot. Now, there are lots of people who say, you've got to pay all your debts off. You sort of ram down that mortgage. I believe there's a comfortable level of debt. So let me explain what I mean by that. I said at the beginning I had £10,000 of the credit card debt. One of the first things I did was to consolidate that debt. Now, the interest on credit cards is staggeringly high. It was paying between 14 and 18% on the cards. I went to, it was actually the Halifax Building Society, and I borrowed £10,000 from them at, I think, 5% at the time. It was 2.5 years ago now, and I paid all those credit card debts off. Now, I was paying on minimum payments, £400 a month for the credit cards.
Wow.
With the loan, it came down. It's 200 now. It's 220, I think now. So I saved £180 a month. Just when I was about to go under, £180 gave me a bit of breathing space. So what it also does is that I wasn't paying minimum off the cars, and I've had to continue to do that. I've been paying for 20 odd years.
Wow.
The beauty of a personal loan is you've got an end date, and that end date was 5 years after I took the loan out, and it's about another 2.5 years. So that's what I mean by a comfortable level of debt. I've still got, I checked the other day, I've got less than £6,000 of the 10,000 left, but I'm comfortable with £220 a month. And I could, if you wish, I definitely have enough money right now to pay it off in full, but with interest rates so low in the bank, I know I can take that money that I could pay down that card with, and I can invest it and get 10% on it, whilst I'm happy paying 5% on the loan. And I think so long as the interest payment on your, the growth or the interest rate on your investment is outstripping the interest rate on the debt, it makes more sense to keep the debt and to invest.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that as well, that, you know, because you get people that, I mean, I've done it at times with mortgages where you pay a bit extra each month, and sometimes you could be better off just sort of paying, you know, the minimum they're asking for, and then just, you know, trying to invest it elsewhere. You know, as you said, if it's a manageable amount, the mortgage that you feel comfortable being able to manage, and being on, like, say, a fixed rate or something like that, so you know that it may not go up or down, the value.
That's exactly right.
What do you think about, you sort of mentioned it a bit earlier about property investing. So, what are your thoughts on that in general?
I haven't been in the property market. I've been interested in the property market. And funny enough, I was a director of a property buying company in 2007, 2008, franchise company, sales director, and it stopped working when the banks went bust and you couldn't borrow any money. So it was a thriving business. Was making good money, but the model ceased to work when the franchisees couldn't borrow money from banks because the banks didn't have any money. So I've stayed out the market since then. But I'm looking at it now because since the COVID thing, it's changed my mind a little bit. I was always worried about we're going to go into a growth spurt and then they're going to have to put up interest rates. But now, since the advent of COVID, I think those interest rates are going to stay very, very low for a long time. And I think now is a perfect time to get back into the marketplace. The government did make some changes, tax changes to investing in property, made it less attractive. They stopped you being able to offset the mortgage payments as a legitimate expense. So now you have to include the whole of the rent as taxable income. You can get around that, by the way, by setting up a limited company. But honestly, with the interest rates so low, if you set up a limited company to buy property and you pay maybe 4% more than you get by doing it personally. So any advantage of claiming the tax back by buying through a limited company is offset by you have to borrow. The borrowing rate is much higher, about 4% higher.
Okay.
So I think so my plan is, as I intimated early on, is I'll go back in the market and use some of the money I've saved up. In June, I'm going to invest £16,000 to buy a property that's deposit and maybe a little refurbishment. In June this year. That's providing the social distancing laws are improved, because it's difficult you can't view properties now. You've got to do it online. It's incredibly different. And if you're going to spend a lot of money on a property, I'd rather go and look at it myself rather than do it over the phone or over the internet.
Yeah.
So then my plan is that will obviously increase my income, which means I can save more. And then on my 60, where am I? 60, I want to be 60th birthday. Yes, my 60th birthday next year in July. I'll buy another one, and then my plan is to buy at least one a year up until I'm 70. Current rules with mortgages are you can't borrow money after you can't get a mortgage until after 70. So that's my cutoff point. That's I'm forced to stop buying then. So my plan is to buy after I become 60 to buy 1 or 2 properties a year up until I'm as many as I can really up until I'm 70.
Brilliant. One of the things that I've always been interested in, and you get a lot of people that have a preference, but I've been a renter before, and I've owned a home as well. But you always get this sort of argument about renting versus buying. In your opinion, what do you think makes the most sense? I mean, I like the flexibility of when you rent, you can kind of live anywhere, or you can up and leave really, really easily and quickly. So I don't know, versus buying. Sometimes you could be stuck to one place, and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're all valid points. Sometimes I think there's 2 elements. Again, I touched on when we talked about ISAs and pensions. It depends where you are, depends where you want to go to in terms of your financial journey. I think it depends on your character. I think there are people who are just natural renters who, I'll tell you a true story. When I was a child, we looked at buying a property. We lived in a council house till I was 16 and joined the forces. But we did look at buying a property, and it was on a road in a nice area, not far from where I live right now, actually, a few hundred yards. And the mortgage, it was a 3-bedroom semi, and the mortgage, I think they wanted £7,500. Now I'm going back to the 60s for this. Those properties are now trading at over £300,000. But at the time, my mother could not contemplate taking a £7,000 loan out. It was just too much for her. And some people like that, they just want to avoid that debt. They can't imagine owing anybody a sum over 6 figures. It's just unimaginable. So it does come down to character. I do understand the arguments for renting. As you said, it's flexible. If you need to move quickly, you can do so. There's no maintenance costs. But I do think the overarching benefit of buying has over renting is that when you retire, if you've planned a property, your mortgage is paid off.
Yeah, that's a great point.
If you're renting, you're going to rent forever. And, if you've come to retirement and you're going to if you haven't planned again, and you're going to take a big drop in income, the last thing you want is that rent bill.
Yeah.
To know that's paid off if you bought a house and you can live free, that whatever happens to the world, you can have no money, you've still got somewhere to sleep at nights. I think that is very, very comforting.
Yeah, because you could have 70 or 80% less money that you need because you haven't got the worry of paying.
That's
paying the rent.
Exactly right. Yeah, I think house payments now make up about 30% of everybody's bills, whether you're renting, regardless you're renting or you're buying a property, about 30% goes to that. I think one more piece of advice I would say: when you buy your first house, and I know this isn't always possible, so it could be a second house, but buy one that you can grow into. So what I mean by that, if you're a couple and you plan to have 2 children, try and push yourself to buy a 3-bedroom house. Do not fall foul of what I call lifestyle creep. And that's when every time you get a raise, you or your partner, you get a bigger house with a bigger mortgage and you keep moving. You never become wealthier because of your money, because you keep taking on more debt. So I recommend buy one house, pay the mortgage off over 25 years. Do not keep remortgaging it and pulling out money from the property to spend on a nice holiday somewhere or a new car. I have sympathy with pulling mortgage out of the property to invest in another property, providing, of course, the mortgage rate you're paying is a lot less than the investment return you're going to get from taking the money out. But other than that, buy the house you're going to need and stay there all your life, if you can do that.
It's a great advice. No, that's very good. How important do you think it is to develop a savings habit, or to, as we say, pay yourself first?
If you're always going to spend all your money, you'll never be wealthy. Now, that's not wisdom. It's not sagacious. It's just maths. If you're going to spend everything you've got, you'll never be wealthy. I give you an example before. If all you did was save £1 a month, you would eventually become a millionaire, but it would take 83,000 years. So all we need to do is to reduce that timeline. So to do that, you need to adjust the 2 other parts of the wealth equation, and that is the growth rate and the monthly savings. What is the wealth equation? Well, briefly, I should go into my second book, which is Retire at 30. But briefly, there's a formula for becoming wealthy. I made it up. So I'll let you decide its accuracy. And it's a combination of 3 things. It's a monthly cash investment, it's time, and an advantageous growth rate. Now, if you want to reduce the time scale, you need to increase the amount you put in monthly and the growth rate, which is why I'm always chasing better return on my money. So as an example, let's say someone working at McDonald's at age 18 until 67 years old, which is the retirement age now currently. If all they did was to invest 2 hours of their weekly wage into a low-cost index tracker, such as the one I'm doing, they will become a millionaire when they retire. So that is because you have the advantage of time. You don't have to put so much money in, and you don't have to get an outstanding growth rate because time is on your side there. Now, the principle of paying yourself first, which you said, is that you make a direct debit out on the first day into your saving investment vehicle of your choice. And this ensures that because you're doing all the hard work, is it fair that the barman should get your money first? Is it fair that the clothes shop should get your money first? Is it fair that the guy who lent the money gets the money first? No, you work hard. You should make sure that you get first call on your money. And the way to do that is to take out a direct debit into your investment vehicle every month. So every month a direct debit comes out the first of my month and goes into my stocks and shares ISA. And it's one of the bills I pay, and it's the first bill I pay because I make sure that I get paid first. So you need to develop a savings mentality. You need to discipline yourself. If you're unable to do, if you don't trust yourself, then get a direct debit done, and you don't have to put so much in as long as you've got plenty of time. But if you're desperate like me, because I've been stupid all my life and I've got 10 years to cram it in, I've effectively got to cram 20 years worth of work into 10 years. I've got to put a lot in. But if you're young enough, you're young like you, Stephen, you don't have to put so much in, and you don't have to work as hard as I do. So don't make the mistake I made. Start saving money. Thank
you. That's good, brilliant advice. I'm so glad that I'm getting it this early. To be honest, it's pretty good. A lot of your content discusses mindset. One of my personal faves is a conversation with an idiot that you have.
All right, yeah.
Most people are living for today and not taking care of business. Like holidays, nights at the pub take priority.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How easy is it to change your mindset and beliefs?
I think it's very difficult. I did it out of desperation. I got that 55-year-old wake-up call when I realised that I'd worked all my life and saved £3,500, and that was by accident. It was because there were 2 pensions I left lying around. I didn't do it on purpose. I wasn't that bright. So it's extremely difficult. You have to be quite special to do it when you're young, abnormal, you might say. And that's because the world, your parents and your friends, for all the right reasons, conspire to make you normal, conspire to make you fit in. And you know what? It's dead easy to be normal. As humans, we're herd animals. We like people to like us, and we like to be part of the crowd, and we fear and ostracize those who are different from us. So you have to be prepared. If you choose to be different, if you choose to go on a different path than your friends, you have to be prepared to be treated differently by some people. People will resent you for it. You'll be different to them. They'll say things like, who the hell do you think you are? Are you better than us? You're some sort of weirdo? Come on, what's the matter with you? Let's go across to town and let's have a drink with the lads and go home with a kebab and we'll do it all again on Saturday as well and blah, blah. And they will, and if you keep saying no, they'll stop calling you. That's what happened to me. And that's fine because I'm happy. I'm in charge of my goal. You have to decide what you want. Don't let other people decide what you want. Enjoy being different. Enjoy being special. I've got a poster. It's on our Facebook page. I'll email it to you when I'm finished here, Stephen.
Sure.
It's a poster on a wall, and there are some lines on it, and it's become a bit of a mantra of mine. I look at it every morning. It's on my phone. It's the wallpaper on my phone. So it's every time I pick my phone up, it's there. There are 4 lines on it, and it says, "Work while they sleep, learn while they party, save while they spend, so you can live like they dream." That's my mantra. That's my mantra
That's
today.
Brilliant.
And if I could just add another to that, I would say it's better to live one day as a lion than all your life as a sheep. And that's what too many people become. They become sheep because it's easy. I don't blame them for that. That's normal. Look out your window. I can probably predict most people's lives. I can tell them at what age they'll buy their second house. I'll tell them what age they're going to have their children, their first or their second child. And I'll tell them when they're going to retire. And I'll tell them where they'll go on holiday. I know that that's what everybody does. Everybody does it. So it's easy to do that. It's easy to follow in, but you don't have to. You can be different, and it's good to be different.
That's absolutely brilliant. Well, thanks again, Perry. It's been an absolute pleasure. Learnt a lot and really enjoyed it. Would you like to sort of mention anything where people can find your content, or if you've got any messages, any final words?
Yeah, sure. I guess the elephant in the room is, okay, smarty pants, you started 2 years ago. Where are you on this journey? Are you wealthy yet? And the way I generally answer that is, I'm not wealthy yet, but I'm becoming wealthy. It's a journey. It does take time. It does take time. So, but let me tell you where I am. I guess it's better to recap. I started 2 years ago, as I've said a number of times, on minimum wage, £10,000 in credit card debt, no savings. I'd spent that £3,500 on something I probably went on holiday with and did what I'd done all my life and wasted it. On my 60th birthday next year, that's 3 years into the plan, I'll become financially independent. That is to say, my investments from property and stock exchange will be greater than my bill money to cover my living expenses. So the annoying thing is about all this is I could have done this when I was 30. I could have done it when I was 30, and I left it too late. And I've got to cram so much work, and let's hope I don't have a heart attack before the end of the 10 years, because it wasn't necessary. If I'd taken my own advice years ago, then I would have retired years ago. Now, you can follow my journey. You can follow all the advice that I've given you there, and there's lots of vlogs and blogs, Instagram accounts. You can find it all at our website. There's downloads, the free ebooks, spreadsheets to help you budget and to make money. It's all free. We don't charge for anything. And you can find that at stupidisthenorm.co.uk.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for coming onto the show. And
You're very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure, Stephen. Absolute pleasure.
That's great. And just for the listeners, please check out the YouTube channel for Superb Diamond Range and the Twitter page, which is at Superb Diamond RA or Superb Diamond RA.
I've subscribed to both, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Perfect. All right. Well, peace out.
Thank you. Take care. God bless. Be safe.
You too. Thanks.
Bye, Stephen.
Bye-bye. Bye.